Well, welcome to Tacoma. It's not my town, but I feel like it's part of all of our towns, so welcome on behalf of the University of Washington, Tacoma. I absolutely love living in Tacoma, Washington, and I love serving as Chancellor of UW-Tacoma. We call UW-Tacoma the state of Washington's urban serving university, and what I mean by that, there's actually a coalition of urban serving universities. It's 43 universities strong, and it's part of the APLU, which is an organization similar to this. It's the Association of Public and Land Grant Universities, so it's where WSU Pullman and UW Seattle, all of our major universities are a part of APLU, and there's an association attached to that called the Urban Serving University Coalition, and there's 43 of us who have a similar mission, and the four tenets of that mission are to provide access to high-quality education where students live. And we believe bringing the UW brand to Tacoma, we're doing that in stars, you know, the purple stars. So the first thing is access. The second thing is to have what we call use-inspired research. And what we mean by that is our faculty are asked to do their research around issues that relate to the time and place of where our campus is. So we're right here in Tacoma, Washington. The great thing about that, even though we're locally focused, this is a global city, and with the port, that's why you're here today too, the things that we work on in Tacoma at UW-Tacoma are applicable to the entire world. The third thing that we ascribe to is to do all this through partnerships. We have partnerships all over our campus. We have the only YMCA in the country that is on a college campus. So our students pay an activity fee for the YMCA, and that gets them not only into our YMCA, but any YMCA in the state of Washington. And what we give up is any Y member in the entire state, many of you are probably Y members, can come to the Y on our campus. And we would love to have you there. So that's just one example of the many partnerships we have. And then the fourth tenet is to serve as an economic and cultural engine for the community in which you are located. And we do that, I think, very well at UW-Tacoma. So our campus is actually neighbors to our port. And I can't point over there, but if you look, do you see the Murano Hotel just above the circle? Let me see. Yeah, on the left-hand side, I'll just walk down here for a second. This is where we are right now. And our campus is just south of this hotel, about 4 blocks. It happens to be the end of the Transcontinental Railroad that came here in the 1870s and 80s through the Cascade Mountains, and that is largely why the Port of Tacoma is here, because this was the end of the Transcontinental Railroad. And then our campus is actually located in those warehouses that were on either side of the railroad tracks. So the trains would come in, they would unload at the ships in the port, and they would back up and unload other things into those warehouses that could sell to retail on Pacific Avenue, or could load up other things and take them across the country. So we are used to being around a port. We have port as a neighbor. You can see the ship there. And I actually love this very much. I live in northern Tacoma, and I look right down at the spar. If you're familiar with Tacoma, you probably know about the spar. But I can see all of the traffic coming in and out of the port, and I feel a part of this port here in Tacoma. When I first got here, somebody told me about the app. I think it's called marinetraffic.com. And I would sit on my back porch on my chair with my buddy and drink a beer and try to decide what this ship, where it was coming from and all that. So I absolutely love our port. So I'm thrilled to do this presentation today. And I told Don that I'm actually, my aspiration when I grow up is to run for port commissioner here in Tacoma. So a couple of you port commissioners, beware. Yes, when I retire, I'm after your job. Now, I came in a little early and put on everybody's card, on everybody's table, our fact card, so you can walk away if you want with some information about our campus. I want to expound on some of it, though, as we go through this presentation today. I did want to point out on the back side of that, on the white side, the front is our favorite color, purple. There are a couple interesting facts, and I'll talk a little more about this later, but you can see hot off the press, this was just released 2 days ago, the economic impact of our campus on this state is estimated to be $313.5 million, which is about a 48% increase of what it was last time 5 years ago. So we're a growing and happening place, adding to the finance and economic viability of this town. I wouldn't be a good chancellor if I also didn't take an opportunity to brag. We don't have the #1 football team or the #2 basketball team or anything like that. But for social mobility among master's granting institutions, and that's primarily what we are, we do have one PhD program, EDD, but among master's granting institutions, we're #2. We were ranked #2 this year in the country for social mobility. And that means producing students who come from a lower economic factor to high producing economic factor when they leave. So we're really proud of that. And Best Bang for Your Buck is a very similar ranking, and we're #4 in that. Okay, now let's go over a couple of these facts in a little more detail. As I told you, I don't think I did tell you, but this is kind of a new campus. It was just founded in 1990, and it's here because the people of Tacoma wanted it here. This wasn't the best place in the world 30 years ago. Imagine that. I think it's the best place in the world right now. But they wanted to have access to higher education in the state of Washington right here where a lot of the people lived. So community members got together and worked really, really hard to get the UW and WSU to agree to have regional campuses around the state. And I'm sure many of you are pleased to have regional campuses in your area. WSU got regional campuses in Vancouver and Everett, Spokane, Tri-Cities, and UW put regional campuses here and in Bothell. So we're only 30 years old. Actually, we're not quite 30 yet. We're starting our 30th year. So we'll have some celebrations later this year. Currently, we have 5,352 students. That's up from the first year we started at 262 students just 29 years ago, and we've grown every year of our existence until this year. We had 5,375 last year, but we took a little bit of a pause. We asked for a new building from the state and a couple other things from the state, which were funded. So we're going to take back off again and grow and open up additional access throughout the coming years. Here is a really interesting fact about our campus, and we're very proud of it. 93.3% of our current student body are from the state of Washington. And even more local, 77% of them are from Pierce, Thurston, and King. Those are the 3 counties right through this corridor. And 25% of that group of 77 are from South King County. A lot of folks don't know how much our campus serves South King County. So that's Auburn, Kent, all those areas that stretch across there. Of our 5 largest feeder schools, 3 of them are in the Federal Way area. This is another interesting factor. Because of the lower attainment rate that we have in Tacoma, Washington, compared to King County and some of the areas that surround us, we are still in the business of bringing this area up as far as attainment rate goes for college education. So that means that a large percentage of the students that come into UW-Tacoma are the first in their families to go to school. That's something we're very proud of. We've set our campus up for that. We have support systems, because if you come to our campus and you don't know, your parents didn't go to college, your family members didn't go to college, you don't know about financial aid, you don't know about how much you have to study to be able to pass some of these classes, you don't know how important it is to be there. So we've really worked to put together on our campus the facilities and support systems to help this demographic of students. And you can see from the graphic on the bottom that if you look at our first-year students, our first-generation students, they actually have a little bit shorter time to graduation. So it's working, the support systems we put in place. And some of that's because they have a little more wind in their face, I like to think. They're a little tougher. Okay, just let me show you a little bit of the demographics. We get our students that come into the UW-Tacoma in 2 major chunks. This chunk didn't start until 2006. UW-Tacoma and many of the other regional campuses around the state were upper division campuses until 2006. The same legislature made a law in 2006 that these regional campuses would grow into 4-year granting institutions. That was passed in like late May or June, and we had to have the whole 4 years by the following fall. I am glad I wasn't here when that happened in 2006, but our faculty stepped up. They put the whole 4 years together in that short summer and started providing access to four-year students as well. So this number has grown. You can see in 2015 it was still smaller. It was what, 460 total. We're up to over 600 brand new students coming in first time in college. So that's one source, and you can see by and large those are mostly purple. Those are students from the state of Washington. And if you look, we don't have open access. This is the University of Washington. We have a high degree of expectations for students come in. You got to get yourself ready if you're going to come to the University of Washington Tacoma and be successful. So you can see our average high school GPA, our SAT scores, our ACT scores are very solid. These are the average numbers. We have a holistic admissions process, so you might be down a little bit in one of these areas but might be impressive in other areas, and we'll bring you in and give you a chance. The other major chunk of students are the ones that come from our two-year colleges. I'm sure you all have two-year colleges. Washington has lots of two-year colleges in your areas. We have many around here. Our largest feeders are TCC, Tacoma Community College, Pierce College, Highline, Green River, South Puget Sound, or South Seattle, South Seattle Community College. But we have a few students from Yakima Community College, a few from Spokane Community College, and so on and so forth. So that's a large portion of our students come from there. So every fall, we have about 1,500 to 1,600 new students that come from those two sources. Whoops. Another thing we're very proud of is the demographic of our students. Our students, underrepresented minorities in our student population, are twice that which the Seattle campus has in Seattle, and even much higher than the Bothell campus. We're a very diverse community here in the South Puget Sound, and we attract that demographic to our campus. So our campus demographic is very similar to the demographics of this surrounding region. And we're very proud of that, and we track every demographic to see if there are any equity gaps in the students that we teach at our campus. And if we find some, we work on improving the attainment of that particular group of students. We have work to do in that area, but we are trying to be on that all the time. This is an interesting kind of overview of a lot of the things I just said. This is a snapshot of who these students are. You see they're a little older than a traditional campus. 57% are students of color. I already talked about the first generation. Most of our students have jobs. Several of our students have 3 or 4 jobs, but at least 40% have full-time jobs. Many of them have children. Many of them have parents and grandparents they're responsible for, but only 6% live on campus. So they're all coming from all over this area, the South King County and Pierce County and the counties around here. And 32%, this is really kind of troubling, 32% don't know where their next meal is coming from. And part of that, it's not by design, but part of it is because the state of Washington also has a pretty decent aid program. And if you kept track of what went on last year, Governor Inslee launched an effort to fully fund what used to be called the State Need Grant. Now it's called the Washington Promise Scholarship Grant. That was fully funded, so it takes 2 years to fully fund that. So 600 students that we had on our doorstep last fall that couldn't get in because they didn't have the aid will now have that aid. So that means that very low socioeconomic students are coming to our campus, and they may not know where their next meal is coming from. They may be couch surfing, but we want everybody to come. If they're ready to go to college, we'll help support them and move them forward. Now, it just so happens that if you compare that dashboard to the national dashboard, the students that need to be taught in our country to have higher attainment rates over the next couple decades, very close match in almost every category, which gives us an opportunity, and we've charged ourselves with becoming the premier mid-sized public university campus in the country. So we're already attached to the University of Washington, which is one of the #1 public universities in the country. They have almost the largest research enterprise, state-of-the-art, beautiful, high-ranked medical school. So since we're attached to that culture, we believe that we can bring that excellence to Tacoma and be the best at what we're good at, and that's that urban serving focus that we have. So that's our goal. We walked around with this being draft for the past year, and we've taken the draft off now. This is our aspiration, and we talked to the Board of Regents of the University of Washington about this last Thursday, and they agreed with us. So that's what we're going to be working on over the next 5 years or decade, is achieving that. Also, another thing is 70% of our students are military affiliated. That means active duty veterans are family of active duty, because you can transfer your college benefits to your children or your spouse. And last year, we were very proud that the UW Veteran of the Year, the Outstanding Veteran Award winner, who you can see is Priscilla Patty Taylor. She was actually a UW Tacoma alumni from one of our first years of being in existence. So she got to be on the Jumbotron at the UW game. Actually, we had a flyover, too, of one of our C-17s from JBLM flew over at that game. And then because of my position as Chancellor, I'm automatically the JBLM liaison for the University of Washington, something I also am really proud of and take very seriously. 23,000 alumni already in those 29 years, and look at that bottom white number. 20,000 of these students now are across the state in your communities, serving and working in your organizations. We have 7 schools. So we're beginning to have the full range of disciplines that a regional college like ours would have. This has been a long time coming. We've had to work for this. But we have the largest school is arts and sciences. That's where the traditional disciplines such as biology and geography and sociology and all those are in that school. History, rhetoric, communications. Then we have our Milgard School of Business, is very traditional, accounting, marketing, finance, those kinds of degree programs, social work and criminal justice, nursing and healthcare leadership, and both the social work and the nursing are one program across the 3 campuses. We have accreditation in those programs that require that to be one program, so we have to work together with our colleagues at the other campuses to administer those 2 programs. Then we have a very unique program called Urban Studies, and I was learning today that our urban studies and our Milgard students helped this port in Tacoma work on their economic impact report. So we're very proud of these students, and it's a unique program that we have. We also have a growing School of Engineering and Technology. The Milgard School and the School of Engineering and Technology are our fastest 2 growing schools. And this past legislative session, we got funding for civil engineering and mechanical engineering here at UW Tacoma. So that funding is in place, and we're searching nationally to staff those programs with new professors in both of those 2 disciplines. And we also receive funding for the design of our Academic Innovation Building, which is the building that will house these programs, which presents a little bit of a problem for me. We just got the design money, and we are hopeful that we'll get the build money, but then we'll have to build it. So we're talking 4 years before we walk into a building, and the students are going to be here next fall. So it's a minor problem. I hear we have room over at the port to teach these students. Yeah. There's a warehouse over there we can use. So altogether, we have over 50 programs now at the undergraduate level, 12 programs in the graduate degree, and then the 1 EDD. 358 faculty and almost 400 staff now that provide this education to these students. It makes the student-to-faculty ratio very low, 16-to-1, so we can hands-on contact with these students. We also have several important centers around campus. I don't want to read all those to you. They're probably some of them familiar. I mentioned the Center for Business Analytics, but I do want to camp out just for a second on the Center for Urban Waters, because it is very closely connected to what many of you do. The Center for Urban Waters was a partnership by our city of Tacoma, and the head of that organization is an endowed chair that was actually endowed by the Port of Tacoma. And then we also have a partnership in there with Puget Sound, who is a statewide organization, and then our research faculty, and we all work together to do applied research to solve water quality problems for the Puget Sound, to help the marine life, to help the port traffic, everything that has to do with the waters surrounding us. We want to work on that together. Now, if I were to go into what all our faculty do, it would take the whole rest of the afternoon, so I won't do that. But here's a few examples from a few of our schools. But what we've done over this past 2 years, and it was in our strategic plan, is to build an office of community partnerships. And I'm not talking about building an office, but putting the infrastructure in to support our faculty when they work with community members and organizations around the state of Washington. They used to have to do that themselves. Now we have an office that will help support them financially. It will be logistic support for them, and also an office that can help organizations that have issues that want to come and seek partnerships with our students, our professors, on solving some problems that we can work together on. So this Office of Community Partnerships is a little over a year old now, and it's really catapulted our faculty into more creative ways to work together. We actually have a website and a tool where you can visualize all the partnerships that we have, because we have a database, and we can turn that database into a visualization tool, and we can see that we have 17 faculty working with the Port of Tacoma right now. 3 from the Milgard School, 3, and I'm just making these numbers up, but for illustration, 3 from the School of Engineering, and 3 from the School of Social Work. And then likewise, we could look at the School of Social Work and see where all it is connected to. So it's a great facility and a resource for your organizations to connect to. And then let's talk just a little bit about the physical plant. I showed you on the first slide where we're located, just a few blocks south of here. When the state sited the campus in downtown Tacoma, it sited it at the warehouse district and drew a line around 46 acres between 17th and 21st and Pacific Avenue and Tacoma Avenue. And so far, we've built out the bottom part of the campus. All those buildings in kind of white or gray are warehouses, except for the YMCA and the science building. All the other ones of those just about have been remodeled warehouses. If you've never been down there, you should walk down there and see. They're beautiful. They're historic, but also modern and new. But we still have about 2/3 of the campus available for development. We don't own it all. We own about 90% of that property up the hill. We've been buying it a little bit at a time as we have resources to do that. But it's still a resource that can continue to benefit the South Puget Sound and the state of Washington in the future as our state grows in population. The blue squares are all of the development happening around us. There's going to be pressure on our campus soon to develop some of this land we own, and we want to participate with that. Here's just a little overview: 22 buildings, 1 million square feet of active space. We also are landlords. We have 50 businesses down on Pacific Avenue that we're landlords for. That results in another $17 million of annual revenue. And then I've repeated that 313.5, the current forecast. Two last things I want to leave you with is we do have a small operation budding in Federal Way because of the large number of students we get from South King County. We're in a partnership with the City of Federal Way Public Schools, and Highline College, and right now we're in negotiations locating that into a rental space so we can grow into it. We got an allocation from the state to open this center as well. And then the thing that guides us is our strategic plan, and you'll like this. The title of it is Charting Our Course, and I think we ended up with that title because of where we're located. We see this as we're together with this community, and we want to chart our course into the future. This strategic plan has 6 impact goals that affect everything we do, and those impact goals are community, which makes sense based on the 4 tenets I talked about earlier with partnerships. Of course, one of our major impact goals is the students that come to us, scholarship, having infrastructure that's good for our faculty so they feel appreciated and supported in the work they do. And then culture, we want to have a great campus where people work together, appreciate each other, respect each other. And then we have a goal of growth, and we want to grow sustainably but also equitably with our community and in a way that's positive for everyone. And then, of course, equity goes right along with that. We're 3 years into the strategic plan, so this coming year we'll be kind of finishing up some of it and stretching it into the next decade or the next 5 years or so. And then here is the last slide that shows that our economic impact, the $313 million, comes from three major sources. That from the actual capital spending of the campus, the operations, all the things around that. Students that come here. Students come from like a 30-mile radius. About 90% of our students come from a 30-mile radius. The rest come and live here. That is another 120 million. And then visitors, parents, friends, people coming down to the campus for conferences. We use the same hotel for conferences in conjunction with our campus. That's another 15 million. And we all know that this region is growing, so we want our campus to grow alongside it. Pierce County has added 75,000 new jobs in the last 5 years. 20% of our population, this floored me, is 15 years or younger. There's nobody in my household that age right now, for sure not me. And the national average for job growth is 2.4, but here in Pierce County, we're 9.3. And we're younger than our surrounding counties. So I think I've said enough about UW-Tacoma, but I believe we would take a question or two. Is that true, James? We'll take a question. If there's something I left out or something you want to know, I'd be happy to tell you.
So the demographics of your student body, how many of them live on campus? Can they live on campus? And how many are students that live at home and go to your campus?
Okay, so right now we have what's called Court 17. It's an apartment building that was built by a developer about 12 or 15 years ago. We purchased that last year. So we have about 298 or 297 beds in that building, and that's right on campus. And that's not enough. That's 6% of our campus. We did a study and found that about 1,300 to 1,400 students, this is 2 years ago, moved to Tacoma that live 30 miles or closer. So even some of the folks that live maybe just south of Olympia moved to go to school here. So we know there's demand for additional apartments or additional living, and our students can't afford some of the high rises, like down on False Waterway. So a development company called KOZ, K-O-Z, just built a new micro apartment building right next to our campus, literally up against it on 17th and Market. It has 104 units. They're micro units, like 200 square foot. But they actually gave half of those units didn't give them to us, but they designated half of those units to be utilized in the partnership we have with Tacoma Housing Authority to provide low-income housing assistance to the students. So that's a growing thing for us to do now, too. Since we're serving this population, we also want to provide housing that they can afford. So a student can actually come to our campus now on the state need grant, have their tuition fully funded, and they can live in a nice 7th or 8th floor micro apartment for about $400 a month. So that's pretty affordable for a student to do that. So thank you for that question.
Thank you for the presentation. My question is whether UW-Tacoma accepts the credits coming from the 2-year programs in full.
Yes, we do. And for the campuses close to us, we have pretty fully developed articulation agreements with all the programs. So almost anything you study at Tacoma Community College transfers here, or you'll know as you sign up for it at TCC what will transfer here. Everything in the state of Washington transfers, but not all of it can be applied toward a degree you're working on. If you're working on a degree in engineering, obviously you can't transfer your social working courses or whatever into that. So we have really good articulation agreements so students know for sure, but we don't have those as well developed as the circle goes out farther to like Yakima Community College and those kinds of things. We have to do that because of the numbers of students we get from those colleges. They have to have some kind of guarantee before they come. Anything else? Here's one over here. Excuse me.
I'm Dick Taylor from the Port of Shelton. I'm a class of '96 graduate of UW-Tacoma, and I want to thank you and your organization for what they've done for me throughout my career. So well done, and and it's good to see an established campus. When I went here, we were in office buildings throughout downtown Tacoma, and at night,
The Perkins
Pardon?
building, the Perkins building, maybe?
we were all over.
All over, okay.
All over. And at night, when you had a night class, you had to have a group of 5 of you to get back to your parking space. So I'm glad to see you established and well done, and keep continuing on.
Thank you, sir, thank you.
I just had one question. Does the University of Washington do what Montana did? I had a son who was a Grizz, and they had some programs at some schools, some at others, and they were careful not to overlap and not to double up. So if you were engineering, you went to Bozeman, forestry, you went to University of Montana, back and forth like that. Does University of Washington do that, or is it demand-driven?
Yes and no. And I came the last 4 years before I came here, I was in Montana, and sometimes that's frustrating because the people that live in, for instance, Billings, Montana, might need, agriculture and can't go to Butte or somewhere to study it. So at the University of Washington, we try to work together to not duplicate too many things, but the basic disciplines you need to go to college, we have to duplicate. We have to have biology, chemistry, math, and all those things. As we develop these 2 new engineering programs, we will focus in areas that will become strengths of ours and not necessarily strengths of the UW, their campus up there. But the state of Washington, with respect to engineering, we're importers. We bring engineers from all over the country because we don't produce near enough. So there's room for our campus to have additional engineering students. But that being said, I think our mechanical engineering program will be focused largely on manufacturing. I mean, we'll have basic mechanical engineering as well. And our civil engineering program will quickly have a strong emphasis in environmental engineering. So yes and no. We work together, and any new program we put forward has to go through the entire UW. So everybody gets a look at it to make sure they agree before we put it forward. Thank you. Okay. Thank you.